The next talk is by Molly Wasser. It's Share Your Fieldwork with NASA Expeditions, a loanable from NASA's social media account. So Molly, whenever you're ready.
Okay, can everyone see or hear me and see my screen?
Yes, everything's perfect.
Okay, so hi, I am Molly Wasser. I am the digital media lead for planetary science at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. And I'm also the public engagement science activation lead for the GEODS survey node led by Nick Schmer. And I'm here virtually today to talk to you about NASA Expeditions, which is a NASA loanable social media account focused on NASA-funded fieldwork. So originally when I proposed this, I was not anticipating that fieldwork would be so drastically affected by COVID. So have that as a caveat during my talk. And I'll talk a bit about how fieldwork and COVID have been impacted through the end with the NASA Expeditions account. I'd also like to draw attention to my collaborators who helped set up the account, particularly the Goddard Instrument Field team. They've been great. And I have a challenge for all of you during this talk, which is to consider how this social media account could potentially work for you, how you can share your science, your work through this social media account. So what is NASA Expeditions? It is a social media account on Twitter and Facebook. And the account focuses on fieldwork, NASA-funded fieldwork. It features weekly takeovers from teams who are out in the field or have recently been out in the field. And the goal of the account is to share this aspect of NASA that we don't, I would say most of the public isn't aware of. If you ask someone, what do you think of when you think of NASA, they'll think of astronauts probably, or spectacular images of space, which we have those are great. But as you all know, NASA does a lot of work here on the ground, and that is really cool as well. So we created these accounts in order to share that aspect of NASA, which may not be as visible to the public. So what does the account do? Well, when we share science of fieldwork. So on the left here, I have an example of a post from a team who went to Iceland, and they have an image of a volcano in Iceland and then a similar volcanic feature on Mars. So talking about the context of their work, what they're doing, planetary analog studies. In the middle here, I actually, a heliophysics team took over the account and talked about a balloon launch, which for me in planetary science was so cool to see. I wasn't anticipating that heliophysics would be doing a lot of fieldwork, but they do. And then on the right is a post and an image that I took in Hawaii with the Goddard Instrument Field team of some research being done in a lava tube. So the science that NASA Expeditions shares, we really focus on the scientific process. A lot of communications work focuses on, I would say, the published result. But on social media, I think it's a wonderful way to share the scientific process. What does science look like? And who is doing the science? So a big part of what we share on the account is the people behind the science. And as Andy mentioned in his previous talk, this is a way to meet scientists, see the diversity of people who are doing science, see that it's collaborative, it's done in teams, it's not, one person in a lab coat, alone in a lab, a lone genius coming up with a scientific breakthrough. That's usually not what science looks like. So the NASA Expeditions accounts lets us share some of those stories, and we featured all different kinds of people on them, which to me, I love to do, because just breaking down that stereotype. And of course, fieldwork involves a lot of logistics behind the scenes. I think the logistics is the first time I learned about fieldwork and got to go out in the field with some teams. I was just amazed at how the process of all this works. I thought it was really interesting. So we do share all of that on the account as well. This post on the left, celebration in the forecasting room as Andre appears with snacks, is one of my very favorite posts that has ever been on the account, because you just see the joy and delight of snack time, which I think is just so relatable. Everyone loves snacks. So it shows that NASA scientists too love to eat snacks. And then on the right, there's a little video I made. Let's see if it plays, hopefully. Here we go. Hopefully you can see that. But this is just something I put together in Hawaii to show off some of our safety gear that we use to actually go into lava tubes. So, and again, this is a way to show what data collection involves, and what you actually need, and emphasizing that we're doing, proper safety procedures. And then, of course, social media is social. It's not just about putting out content, it's also about interacting with people. So on the NASA Expeditions accounts, we have done several live events. This is not always possible depending on your field location, but in Hawaii, I interviewed Jake Bleacher on a Facebook Live. And on the right, my colleague Samson Rainey, I'm not sure exactly how he did this, but he did interview some people on a plane during a fire study campaign from Earth Science. And I think what's nice about this is that a lot of times when you're doing field work, you're very isolated, you're very focused on your task. And for when I've been in the field with scientists, they've loved seeing that people outside of their group are interested in what they're doing and really care about it. And it just, I think it provides a little bit of motivation to be like, wow, what we're doing here does have an impact beyond just our team. So why should you post on NASA Expeditions? So our audience is fairly large. So we have 67,000 followers on Twitter, 226,000 followers on Facebook. And then because it is a NASA official account, NASA accounts tend to only amplify other NASA accounts. So it's kind of an easy in to the NASA social media universe, which has millions and millions of followers. So the potential reach of this is just huge. It's also really nice to have just kind of one place to tell the story of your field expedition. There's, field expeditions have a lot of different institutions involved, partner institutions. And so I have this post on the left showing all the different teams that were out in the field, and then they could combine their efforts into one social media feed. And then also by participating, you will get support from me and from my colleague, Katie Mersman, and we are both experienced NASA social media leads and familiar with all of the roles. So what is involved in a world in which fieldwork is possible? It's a takeover is 1 week, usually Monday through Friday, a few posts per day on Twitter, 1 to 2 on Facebook. If you have a communications person with you in the field, you can do a live option. And mostly because one, every post needs to be approved by a NASA communications person who is familiar with the rules and guidelines. And also it does take a fair amount of work. So we don't want to distract you from your scientific duties too much while out in the field. But most of the takeovers have actually been done after the fact. So scientists will provide me with content, images, text, and then I will post it after the fact, kind of pretending we're out in the field for a week. But as I said, COVID has greatly impacted this. So I've really been focusing on one-off posts or a few posts. So sharing updates on data processing, images, anything that's fieldwork adjacent. So if anyone here does have something that they think would be nice to share on the account, I encourage you to email me. And so my final slide is just the contact info. So if you're interested in participating or like to learn more, please email me, Molly Wasser. I am the general lead for the account and also focus on planetary science. And then Katie Mersman, my colleague, manages all the earth science participation because there is a lot. So with that, I'd like to thank you and see if there are any questions.
Yes, are there any questions? If not, I have a question. What is the engagement like between live posts versus Twitter posts? For example, for like videos that you post on Twitter, you can see views. So would you say there's more engagement for those versus live?
I would say there's actually more engagement on the live posts. So when we do go live, we've seen a lot of participation at the time in the hundreds. And then the non-live posts tend to have a little bit lower than that. It takes them a little bit of time to grow.
Okay. Micah Shabel also has a question. He asks, is there any way to take this concept indoors?
Yes, we are definitely flexible. I'd like to hear more about what you mean by indoors, but I think we can define expedition broadly. So definitely, if you like to do something, I'd be curious to hear about it.
Okay, thank you again, Molly.